Hello and welcome to this Lean Awareness training session. This is normally delivered to teams of people, but just as a taster, I hope you find this of some value. My name is Mark Knowlton. I'm a Lean practitioner and have had a number of years delivering Lean in different settings, offices and manufacturing organizations. So we're going to go through a number of things today. The first thing we're going to cover is why bother to improve. Many businesses are doing really well, so the question is why bother to improve? So just really, what's the motivation behind improvement? We're going to cover the 5 Lean principles, and it doesn't matter where you are in the world, these are the same, so explain those 5 principles. Importantly, how to create a continuous improvement culture. At the end of the day, if you want to sustain improvement activity, if you want to engage your workforce, it's about creating a culture of continuous improvement. So some tips around that. We're going to go through some Lean tools. There's a whole load of Lean tools, but there are a few specific tools that I'd recommend you begin with. Defining waste and value is really the foundation of Lean, and understanding that as a concept. So when you're in the workplace, you can see these are the process steps that add value. These are the steps that are waste. I think having those that vision for value and waste is really a key skill to have early on. We're going to look at the 8 wastes and describe what they are, and then really finish with some guidance on how to start your Lean journey. So finishing with an action plan and something that you can take away. Okay, so why bother to improve? Well, if we look at this graph, we've got improvement on one axis and time on the other. And what you can be sure of is that your competition are improving. So that arrow shows your competition improving. So as a business, you want to be staying, or an organization staying one step ahead of the competition. So your option is to invest more time in improvement, option 1. Do nothing. If you can see that if you do nothing, it really means that your competitors very quickly overtake you. And if you slow down any improvement activity, it's even worse. So in summary, doing nothing is really saying, look, you're going to fall behind the competition as they improve, which none of us want. Here's a metaphor. So when we think about continuous improvement, it's about focusing on processes. And this is a metaphor. This is a pressure vessel, and you can see there's band-aids and plasters, and that tends to happen with processes. You know, we start with a very simple, basic process, and then we, for all good reasons, add something to it, try and improve it, stick a plaster on it, fix something. So over time, the processes become very complex, they degrade, and they really need to be improved and reconsidered fundamentally. And the key part about Lean as the improvement tool is about being tough on the process, not the people. All improvement activity is about improving processes. People, at the end of the day, they come to work to do a good job. It's the processes that are a big challenge. So what is Lean? So here's a very simple definition of Lean: continuously improving your processes to eliminate waste and enhance customer value. So we'll be coming on to value and waste later, but really it's no more complex than that. So the 5 principles of Lean, which I mentioned earlier, starts with customer value. Understanding throughout everything you do in an organization, what are the steps in your processes that customers truly value? So understanding and be able to identify the value-adding steps is really important first step. Mapping the value stream, and we won't go into that today. There's another session on value stream mapping, but being able to bring to life your current processes and map that value stream so that you can identify the value-adding steps and the waste, making that much more visible is a key second step. So mapping the value stream, an important second step. Making the value flow is all about taking away the waste. So eliminating the waste or reducing the number of non-value-adding steps, so the actual process, whether it's a manufacturing process or an office-based process, so that the value flows much more consistently. So lots of tools and techniques about helping value flow. Putting in pull systems is much further down the line. So there's some jargon called Kanbans. Kanbans are a visual trigger that pulls steps from an upstream process to the downstream process. So Kanbans and putting in pull systems is further down the line. And finally, we look at pursuing perfection. So lean and continuous improvement is about never being satisfied with what we have. It's about pursuing perfection. And once we've done a great job at something, we start again and say, okay, how can we improve that process further? And yeah, various elements and tools that we use along the way. 5S workplace organization and standard work are an important early step in lean. Visual management. So we'll come on to those later. So lean and a CI culture, or lean and a continuous improvement culture. Well, this is what we call the house of lean, to explain the concept of a continuous improvement culture. Well, all organizations have an important goal, and these goals tend to be focusing on, we want to have the best quality, we want to have the lowest cost products, we've got to offer that on a short lead time, we want the best safety record for our staff, and obviously we want our staff to be motivated, we want good morale. So they're the top level goals we have as an organization. And the two pillars of these start with respect for people. So it's really respecting people's opinions, respecting their expertise, and asking them how they want to change their environment. So it's involving the whole workforce in improvement. Rather than telling people what to do, it's really encouraging people to engage in continuous improvement and respecting their opinions and ideas, and encouraging them to bring those ideas forward. So important that that happens. And the second pillar is purely continuous improvement. So it's actually saying we have a framework and a structure to constantly drive and push forward our improvement activity. We have teams in place, we have mechanisms to monitor improvement, and we have different ways that we drive that improvement activity. And the foundation of that is something called the PDSA cycle, or the Deming cycle. Just come on to that now. So the PDSA cycle is the plan, do, study, adjust cycle. So this is really the 4 steps to improvement. Plan what you want to focus your improvement activity on. Do, which is actually making a physical change. Study, and this is the bit that often gets forgotten, study that improvement and say, okay, well, has there really been a change? Can we see the measurable change? Have we got the data to show that that change has had a positive impact? So study the data. And then fourthly, adjust. How do we adjust the process so that we can make a further improvement? So plan, do, study, adjust is the improvement cycle, small steps over time to improve the process. I said I've mentioned lean tools. There's a whole load of lean tools here, and those lean tools are used at various stages of your lean journey. So we've got the 5 principles there: value, mapping the value stream, helping the value flow, putting in pull systems, and striving for perfection. So lots of tools and techniques there. My suggestion is you start with these. So understanding value-added and non-value-adding activity, being able to map the value stream, recognizing the 8 wastes, and looking at one of the basic improvement tools, 5S workplace organization. So they're the things that I'd recommend you start with, and we'll look at some of those now. So value and waste. What do we mean by value and waste in a process? So if we look at our day, a typical 7.5-hour day, we could say that's split into the stuff we do for our customers that really are no help at all. They're things we do that our customers don't value, but we just have to do them. There's the things that we do for the organization. They're things that are for compliance, standard things that we have to do for compliance. And then there's the good stuff, the process steps and the activity that we do that the customers really value, which is the green, obviously. So that's our typical day. So throughout the day, you can see that there's just one part of the day that we're focusing on value-adding activity. And Lean says, okay, what can we do to actually increase the amount of value-adding activity we have? Here you see this is after a significant Lean transformation where you've got the same amount of time in the day, but you've got much more value-adding time. So better stuff for the customers. That's the main aim. And so what do we mean when we define value-adding activity? So here's the statements and suggested definition. So activity that transforms or changes raw material or information to meet true customer requirements. So Value-adding activity are things that the customer would really pay for. They'd be prepared to pay for that activity, whether that activity is changing a piece of steel or giving some information to a customer. So anything that's not in line with that definition is a non-value-adding step. So everything else is non-value-adding. We'll come on to some examples in a moment of non-value-adding activity to make that clearer for you. So if I was to ask you, if you think that your processes have value-adding steps and non-value-adding steps, what proportion of your business activity do you think is value-adding today? Have a think about that. What percentage do you think might be value-adding? Take a few moments to think about that. Well, the reality is, having mapped lots of processes in many organizations, that typically less than 5% of business activity is value-adding. The other 95% is one of the categories of waste. Quite surprising, isn't it? So the traditional approach before Lean came along was to say, let's focus on the value-adding step. Let's get that machine to work faster. Let's get those people to work faster, work harder. But Lean says, okay, let's assume that the value-adding activity we're doing well. We're doing that as well as we possibly can. Let's focus on the biggest chunks. Let's focus on the 95% of non-value-adding activity. And by doing that, we look at the 8 wastes, and the 8 wastes are where the 95% of non-value-adding activity is. So the first waste is waiting and delays. So if you're an operator, or if you're an administrator, if you're waiting for information, you're waiting for materials, if you're waiting for a machine to be up and running, any waiting time that anyone has in an organization is fundamentally a waste. Movement or motion. So whether you're searching for information, you could be setting up for a process, you've got tools that you need for your process that aren't easy at hand. Any movement at all is non-value adding or waste. Overproduction. This is one of the really serious wastes. Not all businesses have this, but if you're not making to order, if you're making to stock, if you have any stock in your business, chances are there's overproduction. So making things that aren't required by the customer, production overruns, there could be unnecessary paperwork or duplication of activity. Transport is another waste. So transport of materials, where movement is about movement of people, transport is about transport of materials across the business. So if I go into the business and see lots of fork truck activity, that really sets a little alarm bells for me. And I think, wow, every time I see material move, it's transportation of materials, and it's an important waste. Inventory. So having too much stock or having the wrong stock, all inventory is waste. Now you might say, well, hang on a minute, we need to have finished goods inventory or we can't satisfy our customers. Well, that may be true, but in the long run, you should be aiming to reduce your inventory levels. How can you satisfy your customers' orders with less inventory? So think of all that money tied up in inventory. If you could reduce that by 10%, what would you do with that 10% of value? Over processing. Well, that picture really shows trying to crack a hammer with a nut. So many processes are really much more complex than they need to be. Maybe the wrong types of machines are used, or there's multiple checks or multiple signatures. So understanding where processes are more complex than they need to be is an important waste. Defects or quality, as we often term it, are obvious waste. We can't add value twice. So if someone makes something wrong or actually does something wrong, it's obviously a process failure. So trying to eliminate any wastes that are specifically quality waste or defects is important. There's a Lean tool called Poka-Yoke. That's about mistake proofing. People often say to me, oh, it's human error. Well, quality issues aren't raised by human error. It's a flaw in the process. How can we look at those human factors and reduce the amount of human error? How can we make mistake-proofing devices that stop quality issues happening? And the last of the waste is the waste of skills. Well, many organizations don't actually use the whole part of the person. As I said many times before, with every pair of hands, you get a free brain. So let's use those brains and let's use the expertise within our business. Let's involve everybody in continuous improvement. There's a lot of smart people out there in your organization. They've got a lot to give. They understand the process better than anybody. So involve everybody in continuous improvement and identifying waste. So they're the 8 wastes. And there's a little acronym called Tim Woods. I say, where is Tim Woods? So when you have your waste goggles on, looking around your organization, look for these 8 wastes. Tim Woods is a great way to remember it. So Tim Woods is stealing your time. How can you eliminate those wastes? So next steps, that's a real brief overview of the lean principles. My recommendation is you take 3 important next steps. You build a team, so you identify a small group of people who want to get involved in continuous improvement. It might be within a particular team, it might be a cross-functional team, but invest some time in training, give them the foundation, get them involved in some improvement activity. Secondly, identify improvement opportunities and start to prioritize those. So Niggles and Nuggets, we'll come on to that in a moment. So Niggles and Nuggets helps you identify those improvement opportunities. It's much better that the teams themselves, the people who are working at the coalface, identify where to improve. They know where the issues are, so get them involved in identifying improvement opportunities. Thirdly, prioritize and set the priorities and create an action plan for improvement. And finally, follow the PDSA, plan, do, study, adjust cycle. So once you've got on the cycle of improvement, review that over time. So building a team, as I said before, involve people from their own workplace. It could be a cross-functional team. Sometimes it's a good idea to get people from outside their normal environment involved in improvement. They can often see things that teams themselves can't. But build a team, get people all fired up, get them involved in some training activity to get them excited about the opportunity to improve their work areas. Identifying opportunities for improvement. Well, Niggles and Nuggets is a tool that I use all the time. It's a great way of getting people's ideas. So you need a flip chart with Niggles on one side and Nuggets on the other, and just challenge your teams to come up with 3 Niggles. You know, what are the things that we need to improve in our work areas? Where are the opportunities to improve? What are the quality issues we've got? How can we reduce cost? What can we do to improve delivery lead times? But also complement that with the good stuff. What are the good things that are going well in our team and in our organization? Highlight the good things. What do you do well? What do you excel at? Because these are the things we want to keep and we want to grow. So Niggles and Nuggets. The Niggles clearly are the opportunities to improvement. So identify those Niggles and then find ways to prioritize and improve those. And finally, here's a simple template. So once you've actually got your Niggles, selected your Niggles by the team, then actually start to highlight the problem, the causes. So brainstorm some causes. You can use Fishbone or 5 Whys to get to the root causes of those problems. Once you've got some potential causes, then start to look at countermeasures or actions you can take to improve those problems that you've identified, and obviously say who's going to take responsibility and when's that going to happen. So make sure everybody's got an action, but have a clear action plan and review that plan on a regular basis to see how things are progressing. Well, that's all I've got to say. It's a very quick snapshot of lean and continuous improvement. If you've got any questions, then please get in touch. We've got a free online lean benchmarking tool. Contact us now. I'll be very happy to share that with you. The very best of luck in your future lean journey.